What's going on, everybody? I hope you're all having a wonderful day today. For those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Ty, and today in this video, we're going to be talking about the brand new entry into the Monsterverse, that being Godzilla x Kong. Now listen, have I been necessarily excited for this movie? Somewhat. It's been on my radar, but I feel like these movies, as pretty much everyone knows, have just been getting dumber and dumber and dumber. But from the trailers, I feel like this one actually leaned into the stupid side. But did it live up to the hype, or did it just get too goofy? That's what we're going to get into here in this review. Listen, guys, if you guys like this video, please consider dropping a like. And also, if you want to stick around, hit that subscribe button, man. If you love movie-related content, that would mean the world to me. But listen, I don't want to waste any more of your time. Let's get into this review. Also, stick around to the end to see my final rating. It's pretty crazy to me that this franchise, the Monsterverse, is already a decade old. I mean, I don't know, that's pretty wild, especially that this is only our 5th movie in 10 years, which, listen, that's okay. Take your time with these films. I'm not trying to rush you, but still, they've been doing a relatively good job of putting these films out in a timely manner. And again, going into the theater, I feel like my experience with these films has always just been, listen, I know I'm going to have a good time. It's not going to be anything crazy. It's not going to be a Scorsese film or a Spielberg film. It's just going to be a fun time at the movies watching big monsters punch each other with a very, very, very bland, poorly written script. That's usually how they go. So, going into Godzilla x Kong, I was like, maybe this is going to be the one where we're going to change things up. We're going to fix all the problems that I've seen from either Godzilla, versus Kong, or the first Godzilla, any of them. And we're going to move on. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. It feels like, and I'm going to make this pretty much my main point, this movie takes this franchise one step forward while simultaneously taking it one step back. Meaning that it hasn't moved the needle for me on this franchise whatsoever. So, let's get into the pros here. What do I feel like this movie did to take this franchise one step forward? And of course, I'm talking about the quality of this film as well, not just the franchise, but still. The first thing, the human element in this movie is just completely removed, basically. There's a lot of humans in here, of course. There's conversations, returning characters that we're familiar with from Godzilla vs. Kong or whatever, this movie, that movie, whatever. It's very evident that they were like, listen, Godzilla vs. Kong, the main complaint is that even during the final fight, we're cutting to Millie Bobby Brown, we're cutting to this character doing this. We don't care about the humans. We're here to see monsters fight monsters. This movie gives that to us 110%. And not even just in a fighting sense, we have long, extended sequences of Kong walking around. And they're essentially silent films because obviously these characters can't communicate with, English or whatever, but they're kind of communicating with each other. We see him meet new people that lead him to different places. Extended sequences that are literally like story driven. It's not just like a big fight. Building on top of that, even though this movie is Godzilla x Kong, I really do like the way that this story was very much focused on Kong with a side of Godzilla, essentially, almost like a dinner, if you will. Most of this story, like I was saying, is about Kong trying to find, his family. Is there anyone out there? Is he the last of his kind? That's really interesting. I find that, that's something sort of new here. It's like we're trying to, again, move forward with this story. Speaking of moving forward with the story and almost the world building, the world that we've had set up here, I feel like they've done a relatively good job of world building in this franchise up to this point. But what I really like about this movie is it feels like this is the first time that Monarch is like set up. Like, we're seeing Monarch in action. They have all these facilities. They're logistically sound, I should say. They are good to go. They have a bunch of machinery. They're being funded. They're a functioning organization. It's cool to see that because we get to see a lot of interesting technology, a lot of just processes that they have and the way that they deal with Kong, the way that they deal with Godzilla, how they prepare for them, whether it's like an attack with another Titan, whatever. Very interesting. Again, moving on. We're just rolling here. I like that we got to see a lot of unique characters in here. And by characters, I essentially just mean monsters. Even if it's just a quick little shot of some little, animal running around in Hollow Earth, or if it's a huge fight with another Titan, we get a lot of variety in here. I feel like we legitimately got to see like 10 to 15 unique animals. Again, even if it's just like a little shot, that was cool to me. The last thing, obviously it's what you come here to see. It's going to be the final fight. I thought the final fight was pretty cool. And, I'm not really trying to go into my cons here yet, but I don't really know if I loved the way that, the Scar King was defeated. Not that that's really a spoiler, but of course, the villain gets defeated in these movies, believe it or not. I don't really know if I love the way that he went out, but regardless, the final fight, it's always going to be a banger. This one's really long, too. I feel like this one was like a half hour, and we're like moving to different places and stuff. Really unique stuff going on here, too, with like gravity. I'm not trying to spoil again, but I'm just saying, like, It's not just your stereotypical we're in a city punching each other. It feels like it's more than that. They're actually expanding on that basic premise from like a Godzilla vs. Kong, where they're just kind of fighting in the city. But at the time of that movie releasing, that was a relatively new concept because we've only seen Kong, only seen Godzilla, so now we're seeing them team up against Mechagodzilla, so that was cool. But if you do it again for this movie, that would have been kind of stupid. So again, this movie I think did that pretty well. It does the monster stuff really well. But listen, I mean, I also just throwing this in here just because, you know, it's a $200 million movie or $150 million movie, whatever. The visuals look great. Everything looks very nicely saturated. It's not like the lighting is poor. The CGI looks amazing. I don't think there was one shot in this whole movie where I was like, wow, that looks really bad. Nothing. No complaints there. That's kind of like a low-hanging fruit compliment, if I'm going to be honest with you. And I feel like the last thing, speaking of low-hanging fruit compliments, is that this movie is just fun. I mean, it's pretty much simple as that. I don't really have any in-depth analysis to really go over with that. I had a good time with it. It's watchable. It's paced nicely. And I feel like it does get better as it goes on, which of course is always going to be a positive. If it was the opposite, I feel like I would hate this movie. But I feel like it's time that we really get into the cons here. Getting into the cons here, literally just last week, this is just so funny to me. I put out a review on Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, another blockbuster within a week of this one that also has Empire in the title. And I swear, it feels like I have the same pros and the same cons for this movie, Godzilla x Kong, as I did for that one last week. If you watched the video last week, if you want to go check out my review, you'll see what I'm talking about. Both of these movies are fun, but just very messy and very flawed. This script, man, I mean, there are a lot of things in here that I wouldn't even say are like plot holes or plot conveniences, but they're just very underdeveloped and very stupid. And I get it. They're trying to lean into like the whole goofy element. We have Godzilla and Kong running next to each other like you saw in the trailer, and then he hops on Godzilla. Awesome. But it just feels like such a departure from the 2014 Godzilla. When you look at that movie, I feel like the biggest complaint, despite the fact that I love Gareth Edwards' direction and just his visuals, I mean, unbelievably gorgeous. The biggest complaint of that is that it was too human focused and we barely got to see Godzilla. You see Godzilla for the first time like halfway through the movie. That's wild. This movie is the exact opposite. So again, you know, we're clapping, we're giving a round of applause. Good job on that. Now we're taking a step back. And what's the step back here? The main problem here, despite the fact that they were sidelined, despite the fact that there's barely any focus on them, is still the humans. It's like the people behind the scenes did not bother to write them an engaging story, or at the very least, one that sort of makes sense. They're here for literally no real reason. And man, there's some stuff that's literally just shoehorned into here. Again, this isn't a spoiler because it's in one of the international trailers, but Mothra's in here for some reason, completely shoehorned into here. And on top of that, what they end up doing with this main girl, the one that can talk to Kong, is so nonsensical, so just out of this world, like, what? And stupid and unexplained. It's unbelievable. Every single time we cut to the humans, it's like an exposition dump, like a painful one. It's not even like they bothered to, you know, try to actually tell us the story like show don't tell. No, they're just telling and telling and telling. It's like convenience after convenience after convenience. How do these people survive this situation? Oh, something just happens to happen. Or this situation. Oh, something also convenient happens to happen. It's so dumb. There are plot holes in this movie that literally almost made my brain like numb, to the point where the humans are in this ship in Hollow Earth. And again, this isn't spoilers, this is very early on in the movie. The ship crashes near a base that's like one of their bases. There's a ship there, but at the time they don't know that apparently, so they start walking into the forest. Then, like another hour into the movie, the guy's like, that's with them, is like, wait a second, there's a ship at that base where we crashed. I'm gonna go get that ship for us. If you knew that, why didn't you tell the people that you were with when you crashed there instead of walking into the deadly forest? You guys could have just got in the new ship and then left. But no, that would have been way too easy for the plot. And I know that might be a little bit difficult to understand if you haven't seen the movie, but if you've seen it, you're gonna understand what I'm talking about. Just stupid, dumb humans that just don't make any sense. And on top of that, there's so much, like, I don't really know what else to call it besides like Reddit humor. I mean, it's not even really Reddit humor. I feel like that's disgraceful to people that use Reddit. I do use Reddit as well. It's just like humor for like 12-year-olds, like referencing like Discord and podcasts. Painful. It makes you want to literally rip your throat out. And again, that's also something that they did in like Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, which is pretty funny to me. From there, Kong, like we saw in the trailer, gets this like metal fist thing. And the way that that ends up, developing is also so convenient and so dumb. Scar King, our villain here, he's cool. He's like the lankier version of Kong, essentially, longer arms, but he's shorter than him, so he's smaller. And on top of that, he's only like a slightly better fighter. They're pretty much neck and neck. So the Scar King has to use a device, essentially, or a thing, I don't want to get into spoilers, to try to defeat Kong and Godzilla. And it makes him appear as so non-threatening and so weak, despite the fact that he is a really cool looking villain and the way that he's designed is awesome. Just such a waste. And just overall, man, the final scene, the final fight, really don't like the way that our villain was defeated. It just feels so like, bottom of the barrel, like boring. It's just not that fun. Again, is this movie fun? Yes. It's just so messy. There are so many plot conveniences. The script is so terrible at times. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and act like I didn't have a fun time. I know that I just dogged on this movie for a couple of minutes, but again, it feels like they just took one step forward by, really leaning into the monster side of things, but also one step back by writing just the humans so unbelievably poorly, giving them nothing to do except the stupidest things that are so convenient to the plot. And again, I want to get into spoilers, but I really don't want to spoil this movie for you guys. And that's going to be about it. I know that I kind of dogged on it, but again, it's relatively fun. It's not really something that I'm going to be thinking about too much the rest of the year. I hope you guys enjoy the movie, you know what I mean? But what's my final verdict? What am I going to end up giving this film? I think this film, even though I'm kind of going neck and neck here, trying to debate what I'd even give it, I think I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. It's okay. I think it's better than Frozen Empire just because I would rather watch Godzilla and King Kong than the Ghostbusters franchise, quite honestly. But they're pretty much right next to each other. I was debating whether I would give this a 2.5 or a 3, but I just settled on 3 because I did have a fun enough time with it. It's not even touching 3.5 though. There's no way. Not that great of a movie, honestly. It's fun. It's a good time at the theaters. You could bring, your dad or your girlfriend to go see it. You guys will have fun, make fun of it, whatever. But it's nothing crazy. There's a lot of really stupid things in here that did really frustrate me in the theater. But again, there's also a lot of really cool action sequences and a lot of interesting things being explored here while the world building and the lore is being expanded on. So it's a relatively good time. Guys, that's going to just wrap it up for this review today. Thank you guys for watching. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next video.